Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Gardens, the Untold Story. I'm your host, Ken Somerville, my co-host and good friend, Andy Lopez, the Invisible Gardener. And we're going through his book chapter by chapter. And this week, we're going to be talking about the Invisible Gardener's Kitchen. So, Andy, I'm just going to throw it over to you, brother. It's your book. What's in the kitchen section?
So I was just reading it, and it turns out, see, I've done many shows in the kitchen, because there's many things that I do in getting preparation for the garden. It's a part of my gardening habits, because in the kitchen this is where I make my mixtures that I go out and spray in the garden. See, right? Other than the liquids when I get from the worms, which I then go out and spray in the garden, But in my kitchen, so I was just looking at this one, which is really kind of funny because there are at least, there's a whole bunch of different things that can go on in the kitchen in terms of happening that I would do. So this particular, I was telling you that I had 4 people edit it, and normally I think what they did was they missed a whole bunch because I told them gather a couple of different shows that I did for the kitchen, put it together, and that'll be part of this chapter. I wanted to. So I was just looking at this right now. I'm laughing my head off because they talk. This whole chapter is about coffee, and so it's Invisible Gardener's Coffee in the Kitchen, which is like, okay, because that's a show by itself. Because I use coffee, of course, organic coffee. I don't have to say that all the time. It says why, why? What does this person mean by why?
They're saying hello. So hi, why?
That's this person's name is why.
Yeah.
Wow. That is like, I said, wow, he or she would say, no, why? So that is a cool name. Actually, it's a very, in English, it doesn't look so hot, W-H-Y, but if you write it in other languages, it's really a very ancient dialect.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the W is not spelled like that, and the Y is entirely written in an entirely different language. In Spanish, it's a very unique. It gives you an idea where. Anyway, so today I'm going to be talking to you about coffee because that's what's in the Invisible Gardener's Kitchen.
Organic coffee. Yeah, organic coffee.
Yeah. And it turns out that when I started doing this in the in the 6th grade. See, my family's, my dad's Cuban, mother's Puerto Rican, so Latino people are very much into coffee, coffee. And they're not exactly organic, but, that's my thing, right? So Cuban coffee is really amazing. Puerto Rican coffee is really Cuban coffee is so powerful. It explains to me why a lot of these men are really very hairy because that coffee just makes your chest grow, a beard grow, everything like, whoa, and also the women get hairy too. And like, you like the coffee, huh? It's a coffee. And then they to me, it's like 1 part coffee and 5 parts sugar. So when you drink the coffee, lots of sugar goes with it. And one of the things I didn't like about it, every time I got coffee, can I tell them, can you give it to me before you add the sugar to it? And even then, I really didn't go for it so much because it was chemical. It was pure chemically grown coffee, which I always instinctively, at those days when I was young, I wasn't going, I want organic coffee. I was just saying, well, I was reading coffee is one of the most sprayed plants in the world, most heavily sprayed. And that was at my age before I went in the service. I went in the 17. I don't know if I mentioned, but I already had a gardening club, a business. Way before then, I got the name. I had Don't Panic, It's Organic way before I got Invisible Gardener. Andy Hedman gets a slice of his head. Yeah. So it's a contraption that holds my brain in. So I'm having these what I call this light bursts. They burst out, right? And the other day, a cop stopped me and they said, you're not supposed to have a flashlight in your car waving it at people. I said, it wasn't a flashlight, it was my brain squirting light up. So this device here holds it. Also with my hands, it holds the energy because it essentially goes zap-a-boom, kaboom, poof. And everything will be black and dark, and you don't want that. So that's what that is. Okay. Now I forgot what I was talking about. Anyway, so coffee is so I started using coffee early on because everybody makes so much coffee, and I figured, okay, the coffee grounds can't be so bad because all the chemicals are being already been drunk by all.
Washed out of them. Yeah, yeah.
It's already gone. And also too, I remember my worms didn't care. They say, "Hey, this is good stuff," because if there was chemicals in it, they would die. So I had the indicator there was there's nothing in there anymore because the guys already had it. But still, and that's because and now when I buy organic stuff, I'm actually absorbing all the stuff in the organic stuff. So I'm glad it's organic because otherwise I'll be absorbing. Occasionally, I go out with friends who drink coffee, and I take one sip, and I'm going, "Holy Casablanca!" And I'm one of those guys. There's actually a name for it. They're very not only chemically sensitive, but you have this thing going on with all these toxins. Oh yeah, all right, okay, that kind of stuff. Very super sensitive. My body says, "You do that one more time, man. One more time, you do that, and I'm going to lay you flat." And I've had migraine headaches simply by looking at stuff. I looked at the ingredients like, oh, and I put it down. Try to walk away. Whoa. It's like it's serious. I'm serious. I can just wave my hand over stuff. Don't touch that. Don't go. And I have this internal fight because I try to keep clean. I try to keep my garden clean. But occasionally I'll bring home something that doesn't say it's not organic, but because I fell for the natural stuff, it will say natural. But you look at it, what are all these preservatives? What are all these additives? Anyway, so coffee. So of course it's organic. And there are several things that you need to understand about coffee. Caffeine. Caffeine is a toxic to a lot of insects, massive amounts of insects. I mean, you name the insect. I don't know any insect that can handle being sprayed with caffeine, period.
Okay.
None. You name it, from ants to giant beetles to, unless maybe the dinosaurs, that's not an insect. But Charlie, don't. Okay. But, so, and then the along comes this stuff called cold brewed coffee, because I didn't know about cold brewed coffee until later on in my youth, which basically is constant.
Well, they didn't used to have it, Andy. Cold brew coffee is, basically it came out of, the store going, "Oh, the coffee's old. We need to get rid of it." And then all of a sudden we had this cold brew coffee. It's a marketing gimmick that's really blowing up.
Yeah, but cold brew is a concentrated form of coffee if you make it right. Because I would make it, and it's concentrated. The coffee and the caffeine is concentrated. It depends also where you buy too, because they could be just doing all kinds of stuff. But normally you make your own cold brew coffee, and it's very, very different.
Okay, so maybe describe the steps for making cold brew coffee. You brew it normally?
Exactly, mental. What I was going to say. Exactly what I was going to say, because it doesn't really describe in here, but this will give you an advantage of having the cook talk about his book. And so it's a caffeine, and so any way that you can concentrate the caffeine in the coffee, you're really talking about something that you could use. And the way cold brewed is made. So when I do sprouts, how I have those big giant sprouting jars.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one of the things they actually sell them on Amazon and other places. Cold brew coffee jars. So that big jars where they have a top on it, with little holes in it. So it's already, it's like, instead of having a screen, it has a built-in lid that drips, out, right? And what they have is inside of it, they have a little container that's basically sort of like a tea. Like I have a tea where I don't use tea bags, but I have this metal steel device inside of it. It's like a cage. You put your herbs in there, and it keeps everything coming out, right?
Yeah, I've actually got 2 of them, Andy.
Right. So they make them that goes inside the jar.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to buy it, because you can buy the thing. Otherwise, what you have to do is the way I've done it before, so I realized it was a better, easier way to do it, is you fill up that jar 3/4 of the way with coffee beans, and then you fill up the rest with water, because it will expand and fill up the whole thing. And what you want to do is you want to let it sit in the water, let it soak in the water, and it could be any length of time depending upon how much patience you got, because you really want to.
So you're using the whole bean. You're not grinding it or anything like that. You're just the whole bean and in water, and then letting it sit.
Right, right, and it depends on if it's if you let it sit in the hot places, it'll maybe cook up a little bit faster than a cold place. I think I like it better letting it sit in the cold, dark place for about a week, and then take it out and strain the water out, the coffee out. You'll find that is very, very strong, uh, a concentrated coffee. That's what the cold brewed is. It's cold brewed because you don't heat it, right? You don't heat it
Okay.
up to cook it. Not heating it preserves the biology, it's in my opinion, right? And
Yeah.
so that makes it really, really an amazing biological product, if nothing else, because that's the biology of the coffee beans is absolutely amazing. Because coffee, it's really so. I joined a coffee club, and so basically they teach you that coffee is a medicine that's meant to be taken between 24 and 48 hours after harvesting. So he says, think about it. How long has that coffee been picked and processed and roasted? It could be a year or two down the road before you get to it. And it's
Yeah.
not the same thing as you pick it, you roast it at a certain temperature, and then you drink it all within 24 to 48 hours of the picking. And then you actually can eat the coffee beans because the coffee beans is a big part of it. So you have the plant. Coffee is like a round ball, right? Like an orange cherry. That's what it looks like, the
Yeah.
coffee bean. I wish I had known we were going to talk about coffee plant. I think I have some coffee picks. I grow coffee for a couple of customers, and then so inside of it is that there's a coffee nut, and it's surrounded by this Jello stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that gel stuff is the biology, right?
Yeah.
And
A
that's the
lot of
stuff,
biology in there. Yeah.
and that's what. So when you pick it, you put it in your mouth, and you make sure you don't swallow the bean, but you definitely want to chew the mushy stuff all the way around it. It's absolute amazing healing properties that's been going on for centuries, and that's how coffee got started. But some jerks is like, what am I going to do with this bean, right? It must have some power of that because this is amazing. It's entirely two different products, but it's true. It does have amazing healing powers, the coffee itself. So the cold brew aspect of it preserves the biology. But when you roast it, of course, you get rid of the biology, and therefore you're going down this other path of the purity of the caffeine that's in it.
Yeah.
It has a bunch of other
So
things as well.
really, your cold brew coffee is about extracting the caffeine out of it and using that as a foliar spray to get rid of bugs.
Right. So what I like it. It's better if I can get the plant and take the bean and do that process with the bean. So in other words, when you pick the bean before it dries, you don't put it in the roast or anything. You take it when it's ripened. You take the beans, the whole coffee beans, you put that in a jar, fill it up with filtered clean water, let that soak, and that's going to be your liquid. See, it's a little bit different than just using the hull because the coffee has a husk around it.
Yeah, it's got the shell around it, a
No,
lot like coconuts have that big
well, yeah,
shell.
yeah. The coffee beans has the actual skin, right? The
Yeah.
greenish and turns color. Then it has inside of it has the puppy, the biology stuff, and then then the coffee hut, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the when you're making when not the best, so that's what you eat. You can eat the whole thing, but you don't want to eat the bean because you can't absorb the bean. It doesn't do you any good. So the bean can also be further used, and you can take the bean and you can then when you crush it, that's when you can also make a liquid from that bean.
Yeah. And like
Right.
Wyatt says, without the heat, cold brew coffee is way less acidic, easier on the stomach, and I feel as a cleaner product.
Right. So so when you have the cold brew coffee, it's entirely different than if you just because you have this biology, you have all this biology that's still alive that you're drinking. You see, you're going to actually make it cold. One of the things about cold brew coffee is better not to boil it because then you're going to kill the biology. So if you actually drink it cold, you're going to get the biology. But a lot of people also heat it up and warm it up, and and they heat it too much, and they kill the biology of it. So it becomes the reason why you want to drink it is to drink the biology. That's why you have to drink it a certain way. Basically, it's like cold tea. You want it at room temperature so that your body can enjoy it. But at the same time, I use it in the garden because I realize that, for example, snail control. Coffee is excellent for snail control. So lots of different ways you can get the coffee, whether you have ground coffee. And so when you do ground coffee, you make a batch for yourself, make another batch for the property. You can actually spray that. You can do that several times so that grinds will be producing this liquid for quite a while. And there are lots of different things you can do with that liquid. The very first batch is usually the strongest in terms of caffeine, but it still has caffeine in it, enough to be very effective in a variety of things. The second batch, time you do the coffee, you can actually add, all throughout this process, you learn to add things to it that will amplify it. So here's where the milk, coffee, cream, and sugar is absolutely amazing mixture, not just for people. Coffee, cream, and sugar. And the sugar should be, of course, organic sources of sugar. Honey is really good. I like using molasses, organic molasses, because molasses is usually has more iron and more minerals than honey. But honey is a really excellent source, except it's a little expensive to be making a lot of honey to be spraying. So you can use a variety of natural sources of sugar to sweeten it up. The sugar is important in the sense that plants absorb sugar for food, for energy, right? They make it and they can also absorb it. So when you put sugar into anything you drink, you're fully feeding these plants a little bit of sugar, which they convert instantly because they have photosynthesis to make sugar. So if you already have the sugar, they got that. They don't have to do the photosynthesis. They get it. And that's one reason why foliar feeding is so good. It bypasses anything you foliar spray on the plants is like in your skin. They absorb immediately. So you have
and what a lot of people need to understand is in a liquid form, you're dealing with the smaller molecule size, so it's easier for the biology to use it at that size than it ever would be, to use it at a full size, like a rock. If you're going for, a certain mineral, if you have it suspended in a liquid form, it's that much smaller that the biology can use it right away.
Right. So you have this mixture of coffee, cream, and sugar. Now the cream, again, is another amazing product, milk, and it's organic milk. And it's organic. It should be the whole fat. The fat is also a part of the formula because you can get no fat or you can get with fat. With fat, it's a lot more effective because of the oils that you're spraying onto the plant leaf, and it covers the surface. So it tends to work really well when you have a pathogen or a disease or an insect that covers the whole area, like sooty mold, which is that stuff that gets your leaves black. It's called sooty mold. And that's a bacteria that grows on the nectar that the bugs. Whether you see the ants don't do that, but they heard other creatures that do that, whether it be aphids or mealybugs. They are basically small little cows that go and attack the plant, and then they produce this nectar, and then the ants milk them.
Yeah,
and they take it back to their colony. But I always wondered why they're so messy, because female are usually very clean, but these ants are not. They're real messy. They leave a mess behind. So when they leave, the mold will start to grow on it. That's the mold that is called sooty mold will grow on. And other diseases happen to like this kind of form of sugar because it's food for them.
Yeah.
So the oil will coat that. Mm-hmm. It's like getting a horticultural oil. It'll coat that. And also because of the way of your mixture, because you remember coffee, cream, and sugar by itself is amazing, but part of the secret is you can also increase that effectiveness as well. And so what you need to understand is you have the best tool already that I've been talking about, or what the title of the show is about, right?
Yeah.
Which has to do with the
biology.
That's the one.
Yeah. And you're feeding that sugar is going to feed the plant, and it's also going to feed the biology, because we all need energy, and a lot of the energy comes into the leaf structure on a plant, but biology that's just out there needs energy too. And these sugars, especially the molasses, etc., is a sugar that they love. That's why it's used a lot in your compost teas and extracts to grow more biology. It's that carbohydrate that they need to make more biology.
Right. Exactly right. So so it turns out that coffee happens to be a systemic. So if you spray to one part of the tree, the caffeine spreads out to all parts of the tree. So that's one of the advantages I like of coffee. Garlic does the same thing. You can spray a little bit of garlic over here, and next the whole plant smells like garlic. And so garlic is another thing that I would use in the kitchen because that's where you tend to prep it when you go out to the garden. Ideally, you would grow the coffee, you would grow the garlic. I don't think if you lived on a farm, you would have the milk to use. That's the idea. Basically, if you were on a farm, you would have everything. You would make everything you need right on your place from the animals that you would harvest the animals that you eat as much as you can and use the rest of it. There's lots of different things that came about from organic farmers throughout the centuries. Using soap.
It's a closed loop system where everything you need is actually on your farm. Learning how to use everything on your farm generally is what people are really trying to get into now, to close that loop so that you don't have to go to the feed store, etc.
It would be nice. I would love to. I'm ready to go to my second half of life. I'm in my midlife crisis right now, and I would love to end up living on a farm, because that to me is nothing like living on a farm, because everything you do, when you do something, it starts to multiply. You end up having more and more of it. It gets better and better and better if you're doing it right. If you're doing it wrong, no matter what you do, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you do it right and you increase the biology every time you do anything, you're going to find that it's before long, it's like absolutely amazing. You just have to sort of get out of the way sometimes. It would be nice if we can get out of the way. It doesn't really work that way because there's always something going on around us. It's destroying the environment, destroying everything. So we have to come up with a different solution, which basically just means be here now. And so, but the coffee also too, I find interesting because my worms like coffee. They like the coffee grinds. I haven't given them the coffee beans, even though I am thinking of giving them coffee beans, just throwing it in there and see if they go for it. I don't know how to tell if they're actually eating the coffee beans. But do they get smaller? Do the beans get smaller? Or do they disappear? I don't know, right?
I don't know. Did they get mushy? Because you got to remember, your worms are eating the biology. They're not eating like a leaf. So if the beans would get mushy, then the biology is breaking them down, and then the worms would eat them. But I just want to point out to people that don't only feed your worms coffee grounds, because you will end up causing a major issue with just doing that. And how do I know? Because I've done it and I lost a worm bin because of it. But if you add other carbon sources like cardboard with it, it has a better balancing effect.
The show that I'm doing now, and it's called On the Worm Farm. And basically, it's my experience with doing worms and earthworms. And it's like harder than cooking, because if you do something wrong, they all die on you, or they all leave. They leave you nasty notes. We're leaving, and you just don't talk to us anymore. I'm like, why? Where are you guys? Because it's definitely a learning process. I'm not going to tell you my recent episode that's going on, because you will laugh at me. But it just shows you even a professional like me can still screw up and kill hundreds of thousands of worms really easy. And it's been raining here like crazy. I mean, I was looking at these worms on canoes with little hats on, going, "Oh, okay, honey, hang in there." And it was paddling around. I'm going, Jesus Christ. Yeah, because it was a lot of water. And it didn't rain into the worm farm, but they soak in the water from the air. They were producing water. It was soaking in the water from the air, and then they were producing their own liquid on it. So it's automatic. This is too much water. They weren't able to. And then I also had to, every year you have to take everything out, separate the worms from the soil, put the soil somewhere, do something with it, which is a really good thing to do. You put it in your garden,
Well,
you
it's
put it all.
straight worm castings, right?
Yeah, and the worm casting has worm eggs in it, so it helps you produce more, and it's really, really nice to do. Turn it on to a friend. Here's some living soil for you, but you have to redo the bed. If you don't, it gets compacted, and the worms start to die, and then they vacate. They will leave. They will figure out a way to leave. Many times I open the thing and I get jumped. One holds a gun. Don't move, don't move. They're all escaping. Run now, run, run. I'm going, oh, Jesus Christ, guys. You know. They're all kind. You see, they jump off with parachutes. You see coming down the floor. It's like, okay, I think normally they fight. The ants will come and attack them, but these ants over here are like, we're busy. They left it alone so far. I think it's the canola oil I use as a barrier. They can't swim in it. When I first got a worm farm and I used water. They stood in the tray of water. I figured that would separate. No, the ants would throw themselves in the water, little bodies, and the ants would run on top of the dead bodies to get to the ants, and they would eat the ants and kill the whole thing. It would be like next you know it'd be one big ant colony because they would take over that. It's perfect for ants. I was so often thinking what did it say?
Worm farmums.
Yeah. So I was thinking of making a window so you can actually see the ants because it's so complicated under there. And so I was just doing it now, reactivating again, so to speak, because what I do is I add cardboard to it, newspapers. I add all kinds of sources of carbon that I can get my hands on that's clean, put it in there, mix it all in together very lightly with a little bit of the soil that's there, move them around a little bit, play a little bit of music to it, getting back inside again. But and it's going to rain again tonight, and massive amounts of water, and so there's just too much water. Worms do not like a wet, always, super. Oh, they don't swim in the ocean too well. They're different. What do they call worms that swim in the ocean?
Eels, I think, would be
eels. Oh my God!
Your electric eel and a snake. I don't know.
So in this chapter here, it really, like I said, it's really very weird because it just covers coffee. In this chapter, it's all it covers in my kitchen. I'm going, no, wait a minute. What happened to the rest of the stuff? So I basically said the good guys and the bad guys don't live in the same place. That's really very good for the kitchen. So and coffee. I would start growing my own coffee beans, coffee plants, and grow them because you'll find that every aspect of the plant, whether it be the leaves, the flowers, the beans themselves, can be used. And the kitchen is especially since you make coffee, use it all the time. The coffee grinds are very, very important to use for the worms, but not like you said, not just coffee grinds. I only do
compost.
Do what?
Are you putting the used coffee grounds in your compost?
I don't have a compost set up.
Well, did you used to put them in your compost?
When I used to do the compost, I wasn't doing a worm farm. I was doing the compost.
I'm talking coffee grounds, Andy. Not
I know. I was just saying that when I had a way to make compost, I didn't have a worm farm because I was making a compost. Yeah, I would put coffee grinds in there. I would put a bunch of different things in there to decompose. But when I moved to California, I was only able to do the composting for a short period of time on this llama farm. Other than that, there's no way to make a pile of compost out here in the back. But I was doing the worm farm in the garage. You see, so it's a little bit different setup to have a worm farm for the liquid as opposed to a worm farm for composting to eat your stuff up. Because the unit I have, no matter how big it is, it's still too big for the amount of food that people put out. You have to eventually start throwing stuff away because you can't. You need about 20 of those things. You have to make a new one every time it gets filled up in order for it to let the food decompose and all that stuff. So it's not meant for the food to really decompose. The worms will not eat if it's rotten. They won't eat it. They won't touch it. They'll die.
Have you ever ground your greens up, like, stuff from the kitchen? You
It's a
grind it
liquid.
up and do it more of a paste to feed to your worms?
Right now, I make it into a liquid, so it's kind of like a paste.
Okay.
It gets made into. I have a grinder, so I add a little bit of distilled water in it and throw my vegetables in there that are going out, and then I just pour that in. Sometimes I do it in the worm bin, but I also have worms in the raised beds. Each one, they're not raised beds. Each of the beds, they have their own little worm farm thing going on there. So I'm basically having worms growing in the beds, which is what I want to do. I want the worms to expand from each bed, so they'll be growing in there as well as the worm farm. And then, yeah,
Right.
I pour the liquid in there, and sometimes I would add some things to it to help it increase it, whether it be rice or whether it be milk. Those
Yeah.
two are two easy ones to blend up, and then I dig a little hole where the worms are at, and then I pour it in there. I have to be real careful. 'Cause usually in the center of it, they have their own little structure in there to hold them in, so it looks like a little raised bed inside the raised bed.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, you can using a blender for your worm food speeds up the process.
Well, it's like what I was talking before. It's that smaller size when it's chopped up than the full leaf. When it's chopped up, it's so much easier for the biology to finish breaking it down and use it. And remember, your worms are actually eating the biology. So the more biology that's being produced, the more worm food there is, the happier your worms are going to be.
Right. What I do, I like, so I've learned from experience, they don't like too much of it's too minty, too strong, like garlic. They don't really like garlic. They don't like, they definitely don't like if you have anything that have cayenne pepper in it. Uh, I think that
They don't like spicy. I thought you
yeah,
bought Mexican worms,
yeah.
man. They like spicy.
I haven't, I think they don't like spicy, but I think, be honest, I'm the one that doesn't like spicy. I haven't really tried giving them spicy stuff. I just logically say, you guys don't like spicy, they're no good. So you're not gonna get any spicy stuff. So yeah,
Well,
I blend
and
it.
like Tio puts here, don't like citrus. That's your lemons, your oranges, and a lot of that has to do with the oil that's in the peels.
Right, exactly right. I was gonna get around to there's a whole bunch of stuff like that that's just basically uh, have the really strong oils in them, and so
Yeah,
normally so that takes a while. You can dry them out, but ideally it'd be better just not to put them in there because it will kill them. It's a bunch of different things, just like along the very same lines like that. That's why I have a lot of herbs, but the herbs are not very good for them either because they're very like oregano oil and uh,
mhm.
lavender. They don't like those things. I think I'm not really sure because I don't give it to them to see what happens.
Well, I think, Andy, in nature, as long as you're not putting too much of anything in, that the worms are going to eat them. So in nature, like a lavender, the leaves fall, etc., the worms are going to consume it. But a lot of it's pre-broken down by the biology that's at the top on the soil surface before the worm comes up to try to grab it.
So what I want to do is I want to go over a little bit of what goes on in the kitchen because that's our idea of this chapter here was to cover a lot of things you can get right from your kitchen. But that means when you go shopping. See, when you go to the store, you go buy. But if you're like me, if you buy, I don't use milk, but normally if you use milk, then you can also use for yourself as well for a garden. Usually, whatever you buy for yourself, you can also use in your garden. There are lots of
Yeah,
different things, as long as they're organic, the ingredients are safe and clean, that you can learn how to blend them, like soap. Soap is a basic tool for the organic gardener. Ever since he started their own farm, when they have animals, they make soap from animals, right? So they learn how to make soap and different kinds of soap. Like the Dr. Bronner soap, they also have herbal soaps. You have all kinds of herbal soaps on the market. Just look at the ingredients. When you go shopping, like I go shopping in the health food stores, everything I buy in there, the ingredients should be clean, environmentally sound. I know I could use that in my garden if I needed to do something specific. As I
mhm.
get older, I've learned that simpler the things are, the better. Because the ideal scenario, if you want to buy anything use anything from your kitchen, are things that increase the biology. as opposed to things that would normally kill things. Like, for example, the soap really kills things, right? The soap will kill the ants, the soap will kill the fleas, it'll kill all kinds of creatures. And so that's one of the tools you can use, but you're not really solving the problem. So when we talk about the best thing to use is things that encourage the biology. And lots of stuff in the kitchen. The kitchen is really all about biology. When you'll think about it, it's all about biology. You have all kinds of things in the kitchen that you can use in your garden if you understand what kind of biology it is and how the biology helps, like how milk helps your garden, right?
Yeah.
So there are lots of ways you use, or rice, and lots of other things like that. That when you use them correctly, you're increasing the biology of your garden. When you make the sprouts, you can normally the stuff is so good. The sprouts is so good. It's called Rejuvelate, and I'm not giving it to my garden. I'm drinking this stuff, but I can spray it every once in a while on my garden because it's very good tonic for plants. But not by itself. Because if I make something like that, I would always add my compost tea to it. I would always add a few other things as well to it to increase the strength of it. A lot of times, if I had compost, I would make compost tea almost all the time and blend it in. And compost tea and milk, even though it sounds awful, it's wonderful for the garden because you're not drinking with a dash of soap. The dash of soap makes a nice wetting agent, and you can also learn how to add things to the milk. Like I've been adding turmeric lately to milk because I've done it before in the past. It's called golden milk. You have turmeric and dates. That's golden milk. Turmeric is very, very good for. Turmeric also happens to be very, very powerful biology that can be used in lots of different ways in the garden, especially in the soil. So it encourages the soil to it's full of iron, magnesium, potassium, all the good stuff, right? And so that's
building blocks. You need all those building blocks.
That's one of the things you want is something that's really, really intense and all these things that you want, because that's what you're trying to do with the biology. You're trying to get the biology going in that path of reproducing the trace minerals and everything that you need. And you might as well use something that's what the milk is. Milk is very high in calcium. It's calcium and magnesium and iron, about 20 other different minerals that they get from the cow because the cow is efficient. The cow's stomach has efficient biology to break down all these different minerals and use carbon very effectively to get to this point, which we are then using ourselves. That's why Rudolf Steiner loves his biodynamic system is based upon the stomach of a cow and how the biology can convert things into that's what their preparation is. They put it in the stomach of a cow, they bury it for months, they dig it out, and it's full of the stomach biology, but it broke down whatever product they have in there, and that's a preparation, which they then spread out to other biology, right? Other properties, they spread the biology out.
Cool. Well, and that's what it's really about. The more diverse the biology, the better, the cells that are creating your plant are going to be, because they've got all of the different biology that breaks the building blocks, the calcium, the magnesium, the carbon out of the sand, silt, clay, organic material. And it's those building blocks, but you also need the biology that creates those building blocks. And when you combine both of them, all of a sudden you can reach genetic potential in any type of a plant.
So one of the things that I learned on in my life, it's like, so I would be shipped off to Cuba or Puerto Rico. I mean, literally, get on the boat, don't come back until after the summertime is over with. I go, all right, great, thanks a lot. But when you go to a farm that has amazing biological diversity in it, you get to learn that all these different systems really work really well. And so when I go back home, I try to mimic that. Unfortunately, it's a big difference between Cuba and Puerto Rico and say Miami, Florida, or California. So, but when you walk around a store like a market, so one of the things about being Latino is to have market, right? You go to a market and you have it here. You have markets every Saturday. You can go buy the farmer's market, buy stuff, right? So one of the cool things about buying from a farmer's market is you're actually buying their biology that you're bringing to your place. And not only are you eating it, right? You're eating some of the biology but you're going to take whole bunches of that and add it to your property, whether you blend it up, whether you compost it, or just bury it. You can take So you buy a bunch of lettuce, a whole bunch of it you can't eat. Well, you go out and you bury it,
Yeah.
right? And so you want to spread the biology out between yourself and so so when you go to the farmers market, you're buying from this one. A lot of times you're buying from a bunch of different farmers from all over the place. So you're
Yeah.
getting all the different biology that grew in that place. Is the biology from that place. You have to look at it from that point. This guy's selling the biology from his place. They're selling the biology for that, right? And it was even cool. They made compost. Each one of those places has their own unique biology that you're buying.
Yeah.
See what I mean? Because
Well,
when I go shopping, I remember as a youth, I would actually look at the around to see what's going on in their place. If they're everything sick, I go, no, thank you. No, but if it's like, and I'll tell you, my parents would drive by, I would stop, over there, go over there, and we go see all this fruit look, and fruit looked delicious at the stands there. Yeah, eat, nibble. It was like, holy cow! I didn't need a refractometer to say these things are like super sweet, really high in energy, the whole 10 yards, and that's what I took back to my garden because we ate some of it, but there's no way you can eat all of it, right? You have some of it goes away. No, that gets buried. I buried either making my compost underneath a tree. I found that if I bury some under the plant, that plant goes nuts. If I didn't bury it everywhere, it's the biology, the decomposing, and the worms are going nuts enjoying that biology because they don't really normally get it. And that's the whole philosophy in the Chinese philosophy. That's why I buy. I used to buy. It's illegal now. Bamboo vinegar from China, and their whole philosophy is this is very powerful biology. They are just converting it because they say, look what happens after a fire, and look how this liquid goes. What happens is, just say a bamboo forest burns down, and then the rain comes and wash. It doesn't put out, sort of simmers in there, right? And then that liquid come out as a vinegar, and they take that, and then they would literally see things start to grow amazing. It comes back, that place comes back stronger than ever before. So they say there must be something in this bamboo that we can. There must be a biology and that's causing it. They call it vigor, right? It's very vigorous, and it's like, this stuff wants to grow, and so that's the biology you're talking about. So I would order it, and then I think one of the government agencies said you can't buy it; it's illegal. And now I get it. You know who I get it from, right?
Michael, yeah,
that's right. So he has wood vinegar, which is different than the bamboo vinegar. You can tell by wood and bamboo, which feels like it's a more powerful, right?
Well, I'm not sure which would be more powerful in from the wood vinegar aspect, but your tree is a lot older and a lot denser, and your bamboo is a lot, more vibrant growth and quicker growth. So
that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's going to have a lot of components that are good for both the plant and for the biology
for growth, right? And and I was using that, and right now since I can't buy it, I buy Michael's. I don't really see a lot of major difference, mainly because I have a lot of other things that I add to it, And lately I've been working on getting more of Layton's liquid that he makes, which is also another complete biological world by itself. They're adding it to my biology that I have going, But it's so. And I forget what we're talking about. I know we were talking about vinegar and the biology of the bamboo vinegar, but it's all about biology. When you go to a farmer's market, so when I was running around in Costa Rica in the farmer's market, but people were selling stuff. You actually grew this on your farm. You go visit the farm, you go, holy cow, how long have you been doing this? They have cattle, everything's growing really super large. They never have to water because it waters every day. And you look under, you feel the earth talking to you. And a lot of times they'll show you, see this? And I'll say, yeah, that's called mycelium. They call it something else. It's everywhere. It's like, holy cow. So it's all about biology. And once you acknowledge that, and especially when it comes, so the kitchen is one source of input into your garden, because this is normally you go out and buy stuff, and this is where, rather than go buy milk for your garden, you don't go to the store and buy milk for the garden unless you're like me, but usually you go to the store and you buy stuff, and then so you drink milk. So some of the milk goes out to the garden. Some of the things you're using for your, even though logically that makes sense, unless you're one of those people that just buy junk, you buy chemicals, you buy all kinds of stuff. No, you don't want, and your garden's going to be like that too. So it's not gonna, if you're sick and from eating your food, you're not going to have an amazing organic garden. There's no way that's going to happen. You know what I'm saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
We've got
that's
some
how you.
questions, Andy. We want to hit up a couple of questions?
Sure, I like questions. Never let a question go by because I can't read it.
Okay, well, Serena's talking about we have a location that is radioactive in our state, and homes are being built as close as 1 mile away from it. What do the homeowners need to grow first to ensure that the radiation is gone?
Okay, so we have a similar situation over here from the different things that have been burned, and there's also been some radio activity happening with the research plants, and so there are lots of plants that are called accumulators.
Yeah, accumulator plants.
Right, and they will absorb all kinds of stuff. But what you have to really, if you really want to clean up, what you have to increase is the soil biology. The more biology you have, the faster it will attack the radiation in the soil. The faster it will start to break it down. And that's what you need. Go ahead.
Yeah, and also they found, and this is something from Chernobyl, is that the actual fungal hyphae actually will trap the molecules of radiation in their body structure under the soil
And convert
it. Well, they're not converting it because it still has that shelf life of however many years, but they're actually pulling it out of the environment and storing it in the fungal hyphae. So that is something that is just a higher level of biology in the soil itself. But the dynamic accumulator plants, your sunflowers, hemp, cannabis, there's a whole bunch
hemp is
of
the big one, right? The hemp is the one that I would probably recommend right off the bat because it does grow very big, very, very powerful at pulling up. You want to do that every year, grow a new batch. The batch that you get, don't cut it up and lay it down. You want to get that and throw that away, properly dispose of it away, because remember, it's accumulated. Otherwise, you will recycle it right back into the soil again. Right? But again, the key to it, having accumulated plants and all these other things, is the biology in the soil. The more biologically rich you have your soil, the faster it's going to be cleaned up. All the plants, anything that will grow in there in the environment, has the potential to be an accumulator plant. And there are many things that would do that. But what you have to do is you have to plant as many different varieties of plants as you can, different types of grains, different types. And you will find that there are some that are going to grow faster than the other ones. And those are the accumulator plants. So ideally, you don't really want to have a garden until you have cleaned it up, because if you want to eat from it, so you can grow stuff and then later on, but it'll take 10 to 20 years to really clean it up, depending upon how toxic it was to begin with. So if they clean it up and they still have toxic environment there, it does take a while, but you can control it. And then there was a case I read, a friend of mine, what he did was he lived in a place that had lots of nuclear radiation, atomic waste kind of stuff. So when he layered his garden, he layered it with a bunch of different things that help to keep the radiation in the ground, which he thinks it helps, and I'm not sure if it didn't, except I know that exposure level was definitely reduced. So lots of things he could put in the ground that will eventually got layered that protect it from giving out. But that's not really the solution, even though it does help you expose yourself less, is to have more things growing in there. The plants will absorb it, even if it's just a little bit. Some of them, from what I understand, do convert it. More and more gets converted, and you have less and less of a radioactive problem. I have a Geiger counter, which I take with me all the time. And I've actually
I don't think most of us have Geiger counters, Andy, but
I stopped using it. I would point it, go, and the computer said, "Well, I guess you're dead." I go, "Thanks a lot." But the radiation was off the scale, and as I'm going, "Whoa, this is supposed to be locally in the city," and so
that's Malibu for you, man. That's California.
It's out in the country too, because the actual accident happened in the mountains, and the
Yeah.
way the winds carry it. What happens is that when it gets super dry, it gets very dusty, and that dusty is radioactive, has some small amount of radioactive on it, which then the wind blows and carries it in the direction the wind blows, and you get to pick it up other areas. And normally it blows towards the ocean, so it blows directly down this way. So you have all areas, patches there, depends on the wind, that are very high. They recently found it here in the local high school when they were planting. They did a normal search, and the radiation was too high. So they're cleaning this. What they do is they all the soil away and bring in new soil.
Yeah,
That's
that's what they think they should be doing, and it costs billions of dollars to do it that way. And then it's got to go somewhere and be in a hazardous, dump somewhere.
Even in the hazardous dump is actually perfect, because what you do is you have basically a big giant compost pile and let it heat up and let the bacteria break it down.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
could do that much faster than you could in a normal environment, because you have a giant compost pile, which will heat up, and you have more biology there that will break it down, and you'll find that then eventually the test is to grow things on it and then test the plant.
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Well,
see-
it is radiation like that in a soil is, just another molecule put together in a specific way to be radioactive. And Mother Nature's had to deal with all this stuff for billions of years.
Already has.
Yeah, it's getting the right biology to break that molecule apart and make it inert. And that's possible with Roundup.
Yep.
That's possible with all of these different, chemicals that are being used, is finding the right biology to break those molecules apart. But let's go on to the next question.
Question. Yeah.
Don't plant roots, or I'm not sure how to read this. Don't plant roots exudates or extrude sugars to feed microbes, so they can so they will chelate minerals so the plants can absorb them.
Don't plant roots that excuse sugars. I'm not really sure.
And plant roots, they do. Plant exudates are part sugars, and we've talked about it before. And yes, they're feeding the biology that is, breaking out, the sand, silt, clay, organic material, the building blocks needed. And yes, the plant exudates have amino acids, etc., which help to break that down. So you're correct in that, Andy.
No idea what you're talking about.
Well, the plant exudates for putting out sugars to the roots, which the biology is using, because it's another energy source and necessary components to build the biology that are mining these things.
I don't think that's bad.
Yeah, it's good, because plants, when you're spraying that extra sugar on as a foliar, yeah, it can get mixed in so many different ways in a plant, whether it's, to build a cell, to build more biology for the cell.
It doesn't do any good to spray sugar into the soil.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah. It really, if you're using, and we're not talking white sugars, we're talking like cane sugar, molasses, stuff like that. If you're using it as making a tea and is being used as a source of food for the biology, it's making more biology. They're breaking it down, using it as energy.
Right, but not spraying directly to the soil, because it's not going to do anything.
Well, I'm sure you could dump molasses in your compost pile, and eventually it would get used up, but
that's different.
Not as efficient.
Right. The whole idea with foliar application is that it gets absorbed in a certain way, and that's what the sugar is all about, as a carrier. The sugar can be dumped onto the soil, but in a liquid form, it's not going to be effective than if you use it in the normal way that nature has intended for sugar to be put in the soil. That would be in a larger cell structure, like plants plants have rich in sugar when they decompose. That sugar is it's
Yeah.
available. See what I mean? But
Well,
not.
wait, Andy, I got a question for
Oh
you.
no, no,
If
no! I'm
you
not.
use, a lot of more sugar in, say, an apple orchard than
Yeah,
in a vegetable garden,
yeah.
would you have sweeter apples?
Say the first part again about before you get
If
to the sweeter
okay,
apple.
well, in some ways it has to do with the Serena's question, because she had sour tomatoes. So if you put more of
Okay,
sugar, more molasses in your foliar sprays, would you create a sweeter fruit, whether it's an apple or a tomato?
so this is a very misleading question because there are different varieties of tomatoes. Some are sweet, some are sour. No matter how high the brick is going to be, that tomato is always going to taste sour to you. That's why it's called a sour tomato. There's so many different varieties of tomatoes. Some are meant to be sour in that sense that they're not. It doesn't rely on sugar. It's a different form, and then a tomato. So but so that's misleading. So she may have she may have a sour tomato variety, which she may never sweeten up. So yes, she has to be
Okay.
certain that it's the type of tomato that normally would be sweetened, but adding it to the soil does not sweeten it. It has to be added to the plant because the plant itself has to absorb the minerals, and it doesn't absorb the sugar. Remember, it absorbs the minerals. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
we want to make. It's not like you want to concentrate sugar like molasses. A lot of molasses. It's a certain what you use. What you're doing is you're using sugar as a carrier to carry the minerals. So you don't put in 10 pounds of sugar thinking that the plant's going to get sweetened up because you added all this sugar, right? So,
Okay.
so if the 10 pounds was organically going sugar, rich in minerals, you're probably overdoing it anyway. You doesn't need that much. So what you're really doing is you understand that the sugar source you're using, which is natural, is also rich in these minerals, and that's what you're using to do that. Because if you can just spray the minerals, the plants are not going to absorb it as if it was already broken up. And that's the reason why you add the minerals and the sugar together is because the biology will eat that and
Yeah.
break it up for them. You see, so you can spray the minerals all you want to, but the body's going to look at it and go, I don't think so.
Well,
Yeah,
if you don't have any biology there, you could put on, all you want, a pound of calcium on your acre of cropland, or, in your raised bed, but nothing's going to happen. It's just going to sit there and do
it
nothing. So
has
you
a lot
have
to do with the biology, the type of biology
everything.
you have. So if you
Yeah.
already have biology, it's very good at breaking down the trace minerals. You already have that in your food. That's what you want to use rather than try to get a different type of biology. It won't break down that particular type of combination of minerals, but it will some other types. You have to learn. So that's why when you want to do things, you want to use a refractometer to measure. Okay, I gave it this particular mix. That's why coffee cream and sugar is a really good biological spray to increase the Brix level.
Okay.
Because you have the calcium will automatically increase your Brix level. The coffee should have magnesium, phosphorus, iron, right, and all in the right amount. You can't overdo it. You can give 1,000 gallons of coffee, you still don't won't overdo it. You won't get burned because it is only a certain amount of each, and that's how what the plants absorb. Too much of that won't hurt. It gets wasted because unlike urea, you give it urea 6500, and that will burn everything up because it's
Yeah.
more you really need, right? More you really need. So I forget what we're talking about.
Well, we're going to
I think.
talk about what next week's show is going to be
Oh,
about,
what are
Andy,
we
because
going to do next?
we're almost done.
What are we going to do next week?
Don't
Oh,
panic. It's natural is what's coming. We're doing next week.
okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. So, by the way, guys, my books are here. So, any of you people like Serena, I think she won a book and she had never got it. Is that right, Serena?
I believe so. So yeah, you finally got the books, and you'll be able to send them out. So
Yeah.
the people that
It took
have
me a,
won,
it took me a long time to get the books in. For some reason, something happened, but a case of books came in, and so I think there's about 5 people that won a book. And so all you have to do is to let me know. The easiest thing to do is go, if you're already getting my newsletter, send me email through the newsletter. It'll say click on here for email, and you'll see that. No, I'm not talking about the email, Serena. I'm talking about physical book. If you want a physical book, which I think you did, all you have to do is send me an email saying, I want my physical book. I know where you live, that kind of stuff. And make sure you give me a phone number and an address, because what I'll do is I'll have Emma. See, this one's going to sign, because I can get Amazon to send it to you, but I want to be able to sign it to the weird person with the weird jokes, that kind of stuff. Name is Will Gardner. See, you would like that. So there were a few of you folks out there. Just let me know. Otherwise, if you want to get the ebook, there's a whole bunch of ebooks available. Go up to the website, sign up for the newsletter, and click on the little thing. Get your ebook here. Tell me what book you want, and in return email, you're going to get the ebook. Thank you guys for visiting us today. I enjoy you all being here. You're all my family. My brain is.
I was going to say, don't forget tomorrow, the ladies on Chiropractic is Sexy. Their title is Cold and Flu Seasons is a Farce. It's immune exhaustion. So that's tomorrow, guys. And then on Sunday, Dr. Paula should be doing another show on her Sunday show. And then, of course, Monday we have Cass Gilmore, the gentleman from the on the east coast of the U.S., who grows cranberries organically, all in living soil, etc., coming on to give us an update on his cranberry farm. So that's what's going on right away, guys. Hopefully we will see you tomorrow on Chiropractic is Sexy.
Bye.